Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and I'm coming with a Washington Commander preview versus the Panthers. First preseason game Saturday at 1 p.m. Now, if y'all have already been here, y'all know that when it comes to the regular season, when I do these previews, we look at matchups. We talk about 5 matchups and 3 keys to victory and all kinds of stuff like that. But since it's preseason, when I do these previews for these next 3 weeks, it won't be as matchup based. It's going to be more so a specific player or group of players and what they're doing. You'll see when we get there. I have 10 of them. I have 10 things that you need to watch out for, 10 players you need to watch out for. Because granted, we need to look at everybody. We're trying to evaluate the team top to bottom, all 91 players. Granted, few guys are hurt, so technically like 80 something players, but there are like 10 things that we specifically need to really watch out for, and it's not just starters that at least I'm the most intrigued by, whose storylines I'm the most invested in. And y'all already know I'm a live stream during the preseason games, I'm a live stream during all of the regular season games and all of the postseason games. I'm speaking it into existence. And then of course I'm gonna have post-game live streams all throughout the regular season, an hour after each game, and the same with the postseason. I may have some post-game live streams for these preseason games, maybe, but at the very least, I'll be holding my usual live streams on Sundays where y'all can call in. But before we dive into the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure y'all pull up every Friday night. That's tonight as well for the broadcast show with Shay, Jalen, and I talk about everything. We're going to talk about the Paolo Banchero versus DeJounte Murray beef, the beef between the Bengals wide receivers and the Brown DBs. It's his social media as well. Training camp fights, everything. We try to talk about everything that's funny, especially if it involves sports, but we talk music, anime, everything. And again, also make sure you pull up for the Saturday live stream during the preseason game where I'm gonna break down everything that's going on live. And then also make sure you pull up every Sunday for the call-in show where y'all call in and voice y'all opinions or ask whatever questions you may have. And without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so this isn't necessarily an order of priority for me, but I think obviously number one has to be Carson Wentz's accuracy, consistency, and chemistry with the receivers. That's what we're looking at the most, man, because he's been inconsistent generally throughout his entire career. And speaking of that, that whole Jason Wright situation and with the Scott reporter, with his interview with Carson Wentz, that's a really interesting situation. I'm not going to dive into that. Y'all know me, man. Anything with like drama and stuff like that, I try to stay away from unless it's something that truly impacts the team, so I'm not too worried about it, but I did feel like I needed to mention it right there. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But back to Carson Wentz, man, that chemistry thing, the accuracy thing, again, throughout his history, he's had consistency issues and he's been fairly inaccurate. Advanced statistics say he was like bottom 10 in the league last year in accuracy, even though he did throw for 27 and 7, which is really good, but the accuracy issues are still somewhat of a thing. Even though I feel like our receivers are going to be so open, it's not going to matter that much. But even that Saturday night practice at FedEx Field, he was extremely inaccurate, extremely inconsistent, and had basically no chemistry with Terry McLaurin until that deep bomb. But so far throughout practice this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he's been on point. It's easily been the best week by far of training camp for him. And hey, man, can't have better timing than that, man. As long as he's getting better and better throughout time, I'm cool with that. He can look as awful as he wants early in training camp, but now that he's starting to put it all together, him and Terry McLaurin are starting to find a rhythm, some chemistry, short, intermediate, and long range. He already had chemistry with Jahan and Cole Turner, so I'm not worried about that. But Curtis Samuel, ramp up, ramp down. Mr. Is he even playing today? Of course, Carson Wentz still has to develop chemistry with him as well, and we got to see all of that in this preseason game. The starters, I have an entire video where I break down how long the starters are going to play, how long each quarterback is going to play in Carson Wentz, Taylor Heinicke, and Sam Howell. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. But generally, Carson Wentz is probably going to have like a quarter to see what he can do. If they go and ball out, if he looks like he's doing everything correctly, accurate, showing good chemistry with the receivers, and is out there looking consistent, then they'll probably pull him sooner than a quarter. But if it looks ugly, they may try to keep him out there longer. We'll see. And then staying with quarterback, Sam Howell's progress and development, and this may be number one as far as most exciting thing for me to watch in this Panthers preview game. It's not the most important because we don't expect Sam Howell to play really at all this season if everything goes correctly. Like if we're in the playoffs, if we have like 11 wins going into that last game of the season, then maybe we see some Sam Howell, and that would be an ideal situation to finally get to see him in a regular season game. But we already have our playoff spot, our playoff seating locked up. That's like the best case scenario. And so again, I don't really think this is the most important thing because Sam Howell shouldn't have to play. In an ideal world, Sam Howell will not play this season, and Carson Wentz has everything going. He starts all 17 games, takes us to the playoffs, wins at least a playoff game or two. But still at the same time, as far as what I'm most excited about, Sam Howell, especially against the other team's third string, because he was making plays against our first team defense, which I'm actually pretty high on going into this season. So Sam Howell is going to look like a Hall of Fame quarterback against the Panthers third stringers. I'm super excited about seeing that. I think he's going to ball out. But of course, most importantly, it's not the talent. It's not the arm strength. It's not his ability to run. It's all of the mental stuff that I've been talking about for the past few weeks now. And the reason that I wasn't as high on Sam Howell as maybe a lot of y'all may have been. I like Sam Howell a lot, and I was extremely excited about the fact that we drafted him in the 5th round. Him in the 5th round is the best draft pick in the draft, in my opinion. But still, reading the field wise, going through his progressions, accuracy, consistency, switching from an air raid offense that's pretty much almost always in shotgun to having to sit under center and do play action bootlegs. I mean, he's completely unfamiliar with that coming out of the draft, and it looks like he's already way further ahead in his development than any of us expected. Me, even the Washington Commander coaches, including Ron Rivera and Scott Turner. And so I want to see him put it on display. Hopefully he'll get at least a quarter and a half, and I'm just really excited to see what he does with it. And hey man, Dyami Brown, technically depth chart wise, should not be out there with the third stringers, but please throw him out there for at least a little while with Sam Howell. Let them rekindle that fire, man, and let Sam Howell throw some deep bombs to Dyami Brown, and so we can make this preseason game exciting, man, and really fun, and they can do their celebrations, man. Please. And then also Brian Robinson through contact. That's my third one. Brian Robinson has looked like everything we hoped and more in training camp. Most importantly, because he looks like a better receiver out of the backfield than even I expected as a guy, as a Georgia fan that watched them quite a bit at Alabama and had to go against them twice within like a month towards the end of the season, even though he was banged up that first time when they beat us. But so far throughout training camp, he looks like a better route runner than people expected, and his hands are definitely better than people expected. And I already knew coming out of the draft, again, as a Georgia fan, I've seen his hands, and I was never worried about his hands, but they look even softer than I thought, and he goes out and gets the ball. He's not a body catcher, which is really surprising, especially for a guy that we see as just like a third and short, fourth and short type of guy, just a bulldozer type of running back. Now, his vision is better than that, his cutting is better than that, his patience is better than that, and his receiving ability is certainly better than just being a guy that we bring out on 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s. Brian Robinson is an every down back in every way, but we still haven't seen him through contact. I want to see if he actually lives up to the hype as far as his strengths goes. Again, a lot of his supposed weaknesses coming out of the draft, he's already proven those wrong in training camp so far, and I'm excited about seeing those in the preseason games as well and all throughout the preseason. But I really want to see his supposed strength is his ability to work through contact, to play in between the tackles, and if he can go out there and do that, and I really just want to see him run somebody over. To put it simply, I just want to see him run somebody over and show why we drafted him. 4 has got to be Curtis Samuel's health, and if he can be able to survive some playing time. We haven't seen this man play 15 to 20 snaps yet in a singular game since we've signed him, and that's supposedly how long the starters are going to play. And I wouldn't be surprised if Curtis Samuel stays out there the entire time so they can truly see. They keep ramping him up, letting him be a full participant with pads, hitting, fighting through contact, making contested catches, falling to the ground, things like that, and then they'll ramp him down and he'll just sit on the side field and just chill for a couple of days. I'm really excited to see through this preseason game what's going on with Curtis Samuel's health. This is probably second and most demanded thing, and the thing that most fans are probably watching for out of this list. Probably Carson Wentz 1, Curtis Samuel's health number 2. Can he take a hit? And after he takes a hit, is he going to be limping? Are we going to see him ramp down after the preseason game and like, oh, here we go again? Is he not going to look as crisp running his routes? Is he not going to be as explosive out of the backfield and yards after catch and getting open deep down the field? So so far, everything I've seen from Curtis Samuel when he has played and fully participated in team drills with pads and everything, I'm optimistic about the fact that we're finally going to get the Curtis Samuel that we thought we'd get when we signed him. The guy that killed us when he last played for the team that we're going against right now, the Panthers, before we signed him. I mean, he killed us in literally every way possible before we signed him, and we have yet to see that from him. But we got to see in this Panthers game if he can survive and if he's not overthinking it, because he even said in the interview one of his main problems is just the fact that since he got hurt, he's just telling himself not to overthink it and be his 100% self and not worry about possibly getting hurt again so that he can play to his full potential. So we got to see all of that in this preseason game. Next up, the offensive line through injury. Speaking of health, man, this offensive line is banged up, like really banged up. Chase Roulier, who's been participating in team drills since he's come off PUP list and he's been ramping up, will not play in this game. So that's your starting center gone. Your backup center, Tyler Larson's still on PUP list. And then Trey Turner's dealing with a quad injury, so your right guard is gone as well. So that means the only true starters you have on your offensive line are your left tackle, Charles Leno, left guard, Andrew Norwell, and your right tackle, Samuel Cosmi. After that, who knows exactly what's going on with the rotation? Are we going to have Wes Schweitzer moving from backup guard to starting center, and then Sadiq Charles starting at guard in his place, or maybe Chris Paul starting at right guard? Or do you have Wes Schweitzer at right guard and then go ahead and move Keith Ishmael as your starting center going into this game? I doubt that scenario, because Keith Ishmael, he may not even make the team. He'll probably just make the practice squad, so we'll see. But I mean, the fact that we're trying to figure out what's going on with the first team offensive line, I can't even imagine what the third team offensive line is going to look like by the time Sam Howell gets out there. So I hope they can protect my boy, because again, I really want to see what he's going to do. He's number one for me personally for things to watch in this game. But I mean, with this starting offensive line this jumbled up, I can't even imagine what that third team offensive line is going to look like. But at the same time, John Moscow, arguably the best coach we have on this team, so he's going to find a way to get it to all look like a cohesive unit and look like they've been playing together forever. So I'm not too worried about it, but it's definitely something we really need to keep an eye on and may need to be a little bit worried, because John Moscow, he works magic, but there's only but so much he can control. And then next up, number 6, which tight end is going to show up? Y'all know this tight end group is the most exciting positional group on this entire team for me. Just all of the talent. If you have everybody healthy, Logan Thomas, Cole Turner, John Bates, Sammis Reyes, Curtis Hodges, Armani Rogers, and those are all of my favorites right there. Everybody after that, I don't necessarily consider a factor, but you know, who knows if somebody surprises us. But that group right there is easily one of the most competitive groups out of this entire team right now. It's easily the most freakishly athletic and most versatile skill set groups we have as well. I mean, we have some freak athletes. Y'all know me, I'm an Armani Rogers truther. I think he has the potential to be like a Darren Waller type of guy, like literally. And he's shown flashes of that in practice. But is he even safe to make the team? Curtis Hodges, 6'8", receiving demon. I mean, how do you guard 6'8"? There's nothing you can deploy to guard 6'8", especially when it's a 6'5" quarterback throwing it to him. And then he's already improving as a blocker. He may already be right up there with Logan Thomas, or maybe even ahead of Logan Thomas when it comes to blocking. So it's going to be really hard for him not to make the team. But he's supposedly 5th on the depth chart. Again, when Logan Thomas is healthy, who's currently on the PUP list, when John Bates is healthy, which he is right now, Cole Turner healthy, which he's not going to be playing in the preseason game, and Sammis Reyes should be playing as well. He's finally healthy. He wasn't healthy last year after like the second preseason game. We didn't get to see him do anything really at all last season. Curtis Hodges is literally like 5th on the depth chart. Armani Rogers like 6th, and we're probably only keeping 3 or 4 tight ends. So I don't know how this is going to work, and I want to see one of these guys make it a really difficult decision. Again, at all costs, I really don't want to lose Armani Rogers or Curtis Hodges to another team, because I can easily see another team that's going to be more patient with them, and then they end up becoming who I think they can become. And now out of nowhere, where did the Ravens or where did the 49ers or the Rams end up getting this ridiculously talented tight end? Oh, he used to be on the Washington Commanders practice squad? Why'd they let him go? I can easily see that happening, man. Please. But at the end of the day, going into this preseason game specifically, I want to see which one of these guys on the back end steps up and makes plays. Now, of course, you also have Eli Wolf from Georgia in the equation, like literally UGA Georgia, but I'm not very high on him. And y'all know me, man. My Georgia Bulldogs, I want to love them as much as I can, but Eli Wolf is nowhere near Armani Rogers and Curtis Hodges towards the back end of the tight end group. And so again, I just want to see which tight end steps up and makes the most plays. And for Armani Rogers, he's not that great of a blocker. I don't even really ever see him being that great of a blocker, but hopefully he can become one. So he's going to have to shine mightily in the passing game. Whereas Curtis Hodges, as long as he's decent in the passing game, and he moves bigger than what a 6'8" guy should be able to move like, it's just unfair. And again, how do you cover 6'8"? If he shows that he can block as well, he's probably ahead of Armani Rogers on the depth chart, honestly. Again, Armani Rogers is one of my favorite players on the entire team for us to develop, but honestly, Curtis Hodges is ahead of him, so Armani Rogers is going to have to really go out there and make the most of every snap, and is going to have to show something in the pass blocking game, in the run blocking game, but we'll see. And then also, 7, is Jahan Dotson for real? I'm really excited to see what he looks like against another team's secondary. The Panthers' corners are no joke. I mean, they lost Stephon Gilmore to the Colts, but they still got J.C. Horn, my dog, another Atlanta guy that I love rooting for. Been rooting for him since college. Even when we used to play South Carolina, my Georgia Bulldogs, I always had a ridiculous amount of respect for J.C. Horn. Even outside of the fact that he's from Atlanta, I just love the attitude that he plays with, the trash talking, the whole personality, the whole situation, man. I just really rock with J.C. Horn. And so he's no slouch. And then they still got Dante Jackson over there. And then C.J. Henderson is coming off the bench, and I thought he was underrated. And y'all know, a Georgia Bulldog fan, no team we hate more than the Florida Gators. But I've always given C.J. Henderson his props. And the fact that he's depth for them, I think is a ridiculous cornerback group. The fact that they once had Stephon Gilmore in that mix as well. Then, of course, they're the ones that still have Jeremy Chin and Xavier Woods. I mean, that's a secondary right there. So I'm really excited to see if Jahan Dotson is really ready to step up and be that guy. I mean, I'm not sure if he's even wide receiver 2 yet, depth chart wise. Maybe he's still technically behind Curtis Samuel, but I truly do feel like we have 2 number 1 receivers in Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, and I want to see what he can go out there and do. And I'm also curious to see who the Panthers are going to prioritize. Who is J.C. Horn going to be on? More than likely Terry. Who is Dante Jackson going to be on? More than likely Curtis Samuel or Jahan Dotson. How much do they respect Jahan Dotson? Is he already going to get the attention of one of the top corners? And again, just to put it simply, like I already said, is Jahan Dotson for real? Is he really the real deal? All of this hype through training camp, which he's earned. He's been balling against our secondary, no matter who's been on him. And seems like Carson Wentz has been able to find him. They have a pretty good chemistry going. They're definitely ahead of Terry McLaurin as far as chemistry goes. And I want to see what it looks like against an opposing defense. I mean, you already have people that are not even Washington Commanders fans or reporters hyping up Jahan Dotson. And I even saw a tweet somewhere that he's the best player on our team through camp. Like, not even just out of the rookies, out of our entire team. I saw somewhere earlier today. It was like a fantasy football tips and tricks type of tweet, and they had like 20 something of them. And for us, they said something about Jahan Dotson being the best player on the team so far through camp. And so I gotta see it. I gotta see it. 8, definitely gotta be Jamin Davis, man. Is he ready? Is all of this negative publicity about David Mayo taking snaps away from him the real deal? How much is he actually gonna play? And when he's out there, is he gonna shine? Is he going to exist? Is he really taking a step forward from the previous season? I'm really excited about Jamin Davis, another Atlanta Metro guy. So I'm really rooting for him. I want to see him be great. I really, really do. And I'm definitely one of those people that doesn't feel like he's a bust. Now, will he ever live up to a first round pick? Not sure. But I definitely don't think he's a bust. And I think he's going to show people this year why we took him in the first round. And I think he's going to flash far more often. Because last year, if you really watch film, Jamin Davis had some moments. He had some moments where it's like, wait a minute, nobody else on our team can do what he just did. It was just so few and far in between that it still technically was a really bad season overall. But you had to have seen a couple of plays from last year and be optimistic about what his potential is, especially now that he knows his exact role. The league is slowing down for him. It's his second year. He's not worrying about playing Mike. He's just a straight up will linebacker, and he knows it. So he's going to be able to move more and think less. I think Jamin Davis is ready. We'll see in this Panthers preseason game know how far he's come. And then I'm also really curious about number 9. How long will Benjamin St-Juste play, man? How long is he gonna play? Because right now he's our starting slot corner, and according to the Washington Commanders depth chart, he's technically part of the starting 11. But with how often we're going to rotate another safety in there, with how often we may run out there with 5 defensive linemen with Adarian Mathis as the starting nose tackle, how often is Benjamin St-Juste honestly going to be out there? Because we, of course, are going to be out there with 5 DBs, 4 defensive linemen, and 2 linebackers the vast majority of the time, probably like more than 80% for the season. And then we're probably going to be out there with 5 defensive linemen, your 4 normal DBs, and 2 linebackers for like maybe 10-15% of the snaps of the season. And then maybe, if that, 5% of the time we'll be out there with 3 linebackers. But part of that 80-something% with 5 DBs, that's not just Benjamin St-Juste, that's Percy Butler, that's Derek Forrest, that's whoever. And so I'm really curious to see how much Benjamin St-Juste will actually be on the field. I think he deserves to be out there very often, to the point that you almost consider him a starter, even if he doesn't technically play snap 1 of games. But we got to see what he can do in the run game. That's the most important thing with Benjamin St-Juste. I'm not worried about his coverage at all. He's already shown me enough to where I'm very confident with him in coverage. I still prefer him outside, but he's been handling the slot very well. And whenever we need somebody to cover a tight end, he's literally our best corner for that out of our entire roster. We need a guy to go and cover like a Dallas Goedert or like a Travis Kelce, George Kittle. Benjamin St-Juste is easily our best candidate for him. Now, will he be able to shut them down? That's of course not very likely, and that's definitely something we got to see to believe. But he's our best candidate for it. He's our best chance of doing it. But on the run game side, run defense, that's really going to determine how much he's on the field. Can he handle run game responsibilities? Can he set the edge? What's he going to do when a tackle comes up to block him? And so that's really where it's going to matter, because Derek Forrest and Percy Butler have already shown that they can flash and run fits. I haven't necessarily heard about Benjamin St-Juste doing the same thing. And so when it's obvious running plays or when it's neutral downs and we don't know whether they're going to run the ball or pass the ball, and we have a really run heavy schedule this year. We go against some of the best run games in the NFL with the Eagles twice and the Tennessee Titans just to start it off. The Colts with Jonathan Taylor, the running back with the most yards last year by far. I mean, and then the Browns with my guy Nick Chubb, Georgia Bulldog great, and Kareem Hunt. I mean, we literally, and that's not even all of them. And so Benjamin St-Juste, depending on how well he does against the run, is going to really determine how much he plays this season. But we got to see what he does against the Panthers and to see if we can get any type of clue as to how well he can handle it. And then I'm really interested in seeing how impactful these defensive ends will be in Chase Young's absence. Because James Smith-Williams is technically the starting defensive end opposite of Montez Sweat while Chase Young is out. But I've been seeing Casey Toohill make plays. Y'all know I'm really high on Shaka Toney. I feel like we honestly should just go ahead and let him lose a little bit of weight and let him try to become our Sam linebacker that can cover, that can rush the passer really well. You can argue he has the best bend and the most fluid and smooth bend out of our entire defensive line, out of our entire team as a situational pass rusher. And so I'm really high on Shaka Toney. I want to see how well he does, especially against the run. He did better against the run than I expected last year when we started having all of those injuries and we had to pretty much start James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill, and Shaka Toney was part of like a real starting rotation at a certain point. But I still want to see if he can handle run stopping and setting the edge in this game as well, and really throughout the preseason. But I just also want to see if we just don't miss a step with losing Chase Young. Now, granted, nobody's Chase Young, so we're going to take somewhat of a step back, but how big? And then lastly, technically an honorable mention, because I feel like it has to be talked about, which receiver after the top 4 wants it the most? The obvious top 4, Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson. Not in that order specifically, but you know, just happened to be the names that came to my head. Really, I started with the bookends, number 1 and number 4, and then I worked through the middle. But then after that, technically nobody's safe, even though Dax Milne right now seems like he's above Cam Sims on the depth chart. And I will argue that him, Dax Milne, and Cam Sims are 5 and 6, but Marken Michel, man, making play after play after play. He's probably leading our receiving group in touchdowns this offseason. I mean, whether it's with the ones against the first team defense, if it's against the backups, that deep bomb he caught from Sam Howell was against Benjamin St-Juste, who's been arguably one of our most consistent corners in camp so far. Marken Michel has made, I think he had 2 touchdowns in the Saturday night practice at FedEx Field. I mean, he's just a guy that makes plays, and it's going to be really hard to let him go because there has to be another team out there that's really in need of receiver and looking at him making all of these plays, and he's probably going to make some plays in this preseason game, and they're probably just going to be like, well, if they end up putting him on the practice squad, we're going to snatch him up because we need him clearly more than the Washington Commanders need him. And so who's going to be that guy that steps up? Can Marken Michel play well enough to actually earn a spot on this team? It's going to be really difficult because if we keep 7 receivers, that 7th one's probably going to Alex Erickson because right now he's our primary punt returner and kick returner. According to the snaps that we're hearing and seeing through training camp so far, it's just literally down to him and Dax Milne as of right now as far as our punt return and kick return duties as far as the starters go. But also on this first depth chart that they put out, he's the starting punt returner and kick returner, and also that's literally why we signed him. We did not sign him to be a receiver at all. We brought him here to be a returner. So it's going to be really hard for Mark and Michelle to get one of those spots, because that's if we keep 7 receivers. Whose spot does he take? Cam Sims, Dax Mills? That's going to be really difficult. I mean, I guess in an ideal world, Dax Mills shows enough in punt return to where we don't need Alex Erickson. Maybe he can sit on our practice squad, and then you have Mark and Michelle as your 7th receiver. I don't know. We'll see. It's really complicated, but this preseason is the time for him to go out there and show out. And he's shown that he can make plays no matter who's his quarterback. Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, Sam Howell. So it's not like we have to worry about his chemistry with those guys. So I'm expecting to see him show out. I'm really excited. But at the end of the day, how much is it going to matter? If he goes out there and through these 3 preseason games somehow scores 8 touchdowns, is that enough for him to make the team? Who would he replace? Cam Sims, you got to remember, also contributes on special teams as well in special teams coverage. And then again, Dax Milne is like our 2nd string punt returner and kick returner. So literally all of those last spots are special team, are guys that also contribute on special teams. And then Mark and Michelle, I haven't heard anything about him contributing to special teams coverage or as a returner at all. So it's going to be really difficult no matter how much he balls out in preseason. So I'm really interested in seeing that dynamic right there. Those last couple of spots for the receiver position outside of the top 4. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything I discussed in this video. What are your top 10 things that you're watching out the most for in this preseason game against the Panthers again Saturday at 1 p.m. I will be live streaming, so make sure y'all pull up. And do you agree or disagree with any of mine? Do you have some that I didn't include? I had one honorable mention, so y'all can also put some honorable mentions as well. It was really hard to narrow it down to 10. Honestly, I'm probably just gonna go ahead and make the title 11. I'm not gonna lie. So now I'm gonna look crazy when everybody's watching this video and I keep saying the number 10. I'm probably just gonna have to go ahead and make it 11 because I had to include that last one. Mark and Michelle, man, easily one of the 5 most intriguing and exciting players going into this preseason game for me. Because a lot of these starters already know what I'm gonna get. We already know what we're gonna get from Terry McLaurin. Mark and Michelle, Sam Howell, Brian Robinson, a lot of these guys I'm really intrigued by, man. I really am. But yeah, man, please leave a like on this video if you liked it. If you learned anything, as always, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.